Good afternoon, participants. I'm Yashwendra Singh, Executive Editor of ETCIO, and I welcome you all in this webinar on Obtain Deep Customer Actionable Insights with AI Solutions. This is the second and final webinar in a two-part series, and we hope you enjoyed and got tangible benefits from the first part of the webinar. The accelerating growth of data in all formats, sizes, and speeds is making it difficult for enterprises to get timely, accurate, and actionable insights. AI provides the opportunity to help enterprises close this gap by creating new tools to improve their work and outcomes. But the problem of finding the right data, regulatory concerns, scarcity of quality skills, and lack of ease to use tools to build and manage ML/DL driven AI solutions is hindering enterprises from adopting AI on a larger scale. IBM Watson is an AI platform that focuses on solving these problems and democratizing AI, giving the ease of use to the business and the flexibility of choice to the developer. By seamlessly integrating with the essential systems business already uses, Watson helps turn structured and unstructured business data into actionable insights, ensuring enterprises have the information needed to help make the right decisions in time and with confidence. To throw more light on how to get crucial, actionable insights, we have with us today Mr. Kiran Chellapalli, who is the IBM Watson Technical Sales Leader and Client Solution Architect. Kiran is responsible for working with clients of various industries to help them understand and identify use cases and build solutions using IBM Watson AI platform services. He has over 18 years of experience in the areas of software development, IT strategy, architectures, analytics, databases, SOA, and cognitive computing. Kiran holds a master's in computer science from Northern Illinois University. He has 2 patents, 3 more pending, and a few publications. So, gentlemen, without any more delay, I would request Mr. Kiran to please give his presentation. Over to you, Kiran.
Thank you so much, Yash. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And if you're logging in from outside, good evening as well. Welcome back. So as Yash mentioned, this is the second webinar that I'm conducting as part of this series. The first one, we talked about how Watson and AI can help experts to do their job at a much better scale and capability, right? Today, we are going to talk about how AI or cognitive solutions will help you to, as an enterprise, to be able to understand customer, specific information and be able to extract out actionable insights, right? I'm also going to show you a demo. One of the feedback that I got last time was it would be great if we actually see it live. So this time I've included a demo as part of this session. So hopefully it'll be something that you will like. So let's get started. So I just thought I'll add some, something that people who are new to AI or into AI constantly hear about, right? The fear that the systems will replace the human beings, right? So here it says we are looking for someone with your exact qualifications, but not a human being, right? So I just wanted to, before we get into the specific nature of the topic that we are focusing on, I wanted to talk a little bit about AI and cognitive solutions or cognitive computing and ML and DL. Just pause a little bit so it'll be a nice entry point into our discussion. So as you know, if you have attended my last session, I love asking some questions. So now I'll jump to the first poll question. So Yash, there you go. So the first question is, do you need to read it out? Yeah.
Yeah, so participants, we have a quick poll for you. And the question of the poll is, how are AI, cognitive computing, ML, and DL related or different from each other? So there are 4 options. Please select one and send in your responses, please.
So again, just like last time, there are no right or wrong answers. So we just want to, make it a little bit more interactive.
So participants, the time is up. And here are the results of the poll. 12% of participants say that they are all the same and interchangeably used. 12% say AI and cognitive computing are technologies of ML and DL. A majority of them, 60%, say that ML and DL are technologies of AI and cognitive computing, while 16% say that I am not sure. Over to
Yeah,
you,
and it's
Kiran.
yeah. Thank you very much, Yash. So yeah, so I'll go to I'll try to address that in my own way, right? So when I look at artificial intelligence, and of course this is not exactly my way of defining it. I've looked it up, and this is the best answer that I feel fits well to what artificial intelligence and cognitive computing would be defined as, right? Artificial intelligence is basically where the system kinds of mimics the human intelligence, and cognitive systems are where it tries to use the human way of thinking, reasoning, and remembering, right? So just to give you an analogy, this is like AI is like where we are trying to minimize the human role, and as the example that I've used here as an image is autonomous driven cars. And then cognitive systems, and which is where typically a lot of IBM Watson focuses on, is augmenting the human expertise, right? So being able to scale, being able to provide information quickly, and with accuracy, with high accuracy, right? So that is cognitive system. So in my mind, both of these, as 60% of you responded, very similar to what I think, where these two systems, both of them are driven by technologies like machine learning, deep learning, right, NLP, and so on and so forth. So that's how I look at this whole thing, and I know that once we start debating in this, we can spend hours or even days sometimes, countering each other as to what is what. But at a high level, this is what it is, and then we can, just to get us understanding, and we can move further. So one of the other thing that I wanted to focus here is that this is nothing, in a university level discussion, nothing. It is in an enterprise level discussion, and we are also seeing it at a user levels, right? Wherein we are using and facing or utilizing AI, ML, cognitive systems on a daily basis. If you have the latest iPhone, facial recognition to unlocking your phone is one such thing, right? Chatbots are the most commonly used from an enterprise perspective. Autonomous vehicles are the most popular, and still we are still not there, and you must be reading a lot about this, but so on and so forth. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that it is not somewhere down the road. It's not something good to have. As an enterprise, we need to have this, ready. We need to have solutions that will, use some of these capabilities. Otherwise, we'll fall back, right? So I'll jump to the next question. I know it's a quick. We didn't do a lot of talking, but I think this will, set the tone as well.
Thank you, Kiran. So participants, we have another quick poll for you. And the question is, what areas of business have you started or would like to implement AI/cognitive? There are five responses, five options for you to pick any of them. Please send in your responses. You've got 60 seconds to make a choice.
Yeah, and as Yash mentioned, these are, no, it's not a single answer response. You can choose all five, or pick whatever you think, are the areas that you are focusing on as an enterprise.
So participants, the time is up, and we also have the results of the poll in front of us. 45% of the participants have chosen customer satisfaction. 48% have ticked customer retention and acquisition. 50% have chosen cost savings. 69% have gone for operations automation. and 32% have chosen human resources. Over to you, Kiran.
Thank you. And that actually kind of interestingly fits well with the industry level CIO and the CEO level, survey that was done recently by IBM within India. And so HR somehow seems to be, which used to be a big thing a couple of years ago. Somehow it has fallen back. So it's interesting to see that, we see a similar kind of a result here. So, okay, let's jump into, our topic of the day. So first thing first, one of the key issues where we struggle with, from an enterprise point of view, the implementation point of view, right, as to how to get started. Some of the concerns or worries that we have is number one is data. We have data, that is, in silos. And what I mean by that is that you could have, even within an enterprise, you could have certain data that is part of customer service and certain data that is part of sales organization, certain data that is part of marketing. And, sharing of the data doesn't happen so well, right? So it becomes difficult, even if there is a good survey that customer service, sales survey that customer service would find it useful to understand how customers are, the perception of their contact center, they still are not able to use that. Another factor is that data is all types these days, right? It's not only the old way of transactional data, structured data, right? The data can be unstructured as in it could be an email, it could be blogs, it could be text, it could be videos, images, so on and so forth, right? Even voice and speech, right? Then the second part is, again, related to data is governance issues, right? Who owns what? Can I share this? How do I restrict access? And so on and so forth. And then the third one, and actually this in that survey that I mentioned earlier, is being talked about as the most critical hindrance to in the path towards an AI acceptance within an enterprise, which is skills, right? And data science skills are in low supply and high in demand. They are expensive. There is high attrition currently, and so what they are saying is that the CIOs and CEOs were saying is that we need an ability to democratize this, right? To be able to not be dependent on high niche skills. We do need those people, but we want for us to scale that needs to be democratized too, so that even my developers and even non coding subject matter experts are able to implement AI solutions. And the last factor is, which kind of leads to what I was just saying, is that tools and infrastructure. We don't want to say, oh, suddenly I need a 20 core, say 50 GB RAM, whatever, right? System, and then for me to procure it, it's going to take time. We need which basically the point that I'm trying to make is what everybody is, pretty much is going towards is cloud, right? So, being able to have an infrastructure on the fly, being without any delay in terms of setting it up. So this every industry is taking its own path in various in terms of AI, embedding AI. So I'm not going to go into details of each of this. I just wanted to put it out there that each industry is looking at it in different ways. So there is no it's not just retail only or financial only or telco only, right? We are looking at a lot of interesting use cases in manufacturing. Healthcare, of course, is pretty much, very famous, right? In travel, banking, energy and utilities, and so on and so forth. A lot of industries, right? So focused on today's topic, right? So some of the what is it that we are trying to do here is customers, when enterprises would like to understand what customers are saying at a macro level as well as a micro level, as in from the whole of the market, what are people talking about? My brand, my enterprise, right? My products, my customer service, my sales, and also at a micro level, maybe, okay, if I am a financial organization, what is Kiran, doing from a financial perspective? Where is he currently, and what products can I position to him at a micro level, right? Of course, with the GDPR and all that, we want to maintain the privacy restrictions, but still be able to use whatever information that is acceptably available for the enterprise, and use that to build insights that can then be used to understand both at a micro and a macro level, right? Some of the use cases I've listed here on the left hand side is basically unstructured, information, right? Voice of the customer, and which is the demo that I'm going to show you, and that will help you understand what I'm talking about there. Travel advice being based upon your patterns, things that you've talked about, and if you allow them social media posts, in terms of to be able to best advise what is the kind of vacation that you would like, right? It's not just aggregating and finding information, but also giving you personalized advice. CRM updates as you are talking to, and this is one of our clients in Asia Pacific actually uses this, where if you're talking to their insurance company, where as you're talking to them and you mention that, oh, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and they immediately use that information to update the CRM to then give you personalized, recommendations as to what you can do in terms of your financial investments in the next, the insurance perspective as well, right? And there are a number of other things as well, personality, image and video analytics, and so on, that will give you the insights from customers, right? On the right hand side is more structured kind of data. It could be like fraud and AML detection. You want to understand that, personalization, right? Employee retention, brand loyalty, and so on and so forth. So from a customer insights, patterns that we have, and there are a whole number of more such patterns that are available, right? So voice of the customer is one of the things that I mentioned. It's a very interesting use case, and it is a unique one because it's not so easy, because NLP is something that still, while it has been there for a while, it hasn't been easy for enterprises to start using it. And that's where Watson comes into picture, where we are the best in terms of being able to extract real actionable insights out of very little data, right? Typically, you need large amount of data to be able to extract insights and create some patterns. In our case, that is not the case. So we can identify patterns and trends, what people are saying. We can, drill down. We can actually, I'll show you how very interactively I can jump from and narrow down to a specific set of, and I'm going to show you some complaints data, how we can narrow down and look at any specific data that you want to focus on, right? Configurable visualizations, I'll show you how this is not just some, low-level Python coding that you have to do for each step. It's domain training. You can also adapt it to your specific domain. The domain that I'm going to show you, the way we have trained it, is financial FSS. But this can easily be trained. The system is so flexible in that sense that you can train it to whatever domain you want it to be. If you're in manufacturing, you can train it for a manufacturing domain. You can train Watson to understand your language, your way of saying it. One of the best examples that I use here is, for example, the word orange, right? In normal parlance, orange is a color or a fruit, right? But let's say you are a telecommunications company, and for you, orange is a plan, right? If somebody says, I want to know more about orange, right? So that doesn't mean he's asking about the fruit or the color. He's actually saying about that particular plan, the 299 orange, right? So he's saying, for that particular plan, I want to know more details. So that level of understanding and training the system is very easy using with Watson. So yeah, this is some details about the solution. I think I've talked about some of this already. So I'll jump to the demo, because I think that's more fun and you will see a lot more value out of that. So here is a demo that we have created. I hope you can all see it. So this is a general dashboard. So as I said, this is actually, let me show you this. So there are, as you can see here, there are over 270,000 complaints that we have put together. This is actually a pilot that we did for a particular client, and the client has okayed us to use this with some of the sensitive information masked out. As you can see here, a lot of the information has been masked out. So if you look at it, for me to go through, if I have all of this complaints data, all in unstructured text, there is certain amount of structured aspect as well, like what product, what date, a complaint ID, but that doesn't really tell me much, right? If I really want to understand what exactly are people saying, and I want to gain some actionable insights out of it, it's very difficult. How do I humanly? It's impossible for one. And you need large number of people, and then you might have bias, you might have inconsistencies, human errors, and so on. So I'll show you how Watson can help you quickly navigate and find, specific insights that you can then take action upon. So before we do that, let me just show you what we have here. As I said, this is a a nice little dashboard. As you can see here, this is the time series graph that you're seeing here in terms of number of complaints over a span of multiple years, right? And then it's saying here, it's giving you the number of complaints. We track the sentiment, and Watson can give you the sentiment of it. And it's basically saying here is that the sentiment is decreasing over a period from March 2015 to July 2018, right? And what is the customer? And Watson can also detect, empathize in the sense that it can detect emotions, right? And based upon those, you can react and respond accordingly, right? Right. So in this case, what we are showing is that customer anger level is a 27 out of 100, which is not so much. So it's not so bad. And then we are also giving you the breakdown of what are the different products on which these complaints have come about, right? And then what are the topics, various topics that they are talking about. And then here is the NLP aspect of it, right? Apart from the emotional aspect, which is also NLP, and the sentiment. The other aspects that what Watson can detect is concepts, and you don't even have to talk about credit card in there, but it can, based upon what is being said, the term credit card might not even be mentioned, but it can still detect, and based upon what is being talked about, it can come up and say this is a credit card related discussion or complaint, right? And we also detect entities, and this is where you can add your own. What I gave you the example as orange as an example, right, where you can train the system on specific entities. So now let's start looking at a particular use case. And I mean, as I said, 272,000 complaints, not much value for me to go through each one of them. So I want to narrow it down. This is a more structured one, but let us say I just choose one of the companies here. I choose Citibank here, and now it should automatically refresh, and you should see the number of complaints go down, and you can see here 10,000, which still is a large number, and it's not easy for humanly possible for us to go through it. And there's not much. You see an 8% sentiment decrease. Okay, that's not much in terms of that, right? So the next thing, what I can do is I can actually then narrow down based upon the company, right? Instead of I want to see, because I have, or maybe let me do that. Let me actually then narrow down to product based, right? Let me just look at credit cards first, credit card related complaints, right? Let's narrow it down to that, and let's give it some time. So there you go. Now it has come down to about 4,000 complaints. And within that, I want to specifically look at, what are the different concepts, and, what are the entities here. Citibank, anyway, because it's a Citibank related one, about Macy's, majority of them talking about Macy's. So if I narrow it down to Macy's, Macy's specific credit card, right? Then what should I see next? Is I have 530 complaints, and what I'm seeing is a lot of them, again, if I look at the entities aspect of it, a lot of them have mentions of Macy's, obviously, because we are talking about Macy's specific credit card. But then I see 78 mentions where they're talking about fraud, right? So now quickly I can, as you can see here, in a matter of minutes, I'm able to narrow down from 270,000 complaints to 78 complaints specific to Macy's and specific to talking about fraud. And as you can see here, the sentiment decrease in the last whatever time frame is huge, right? You see a 200% sentiment decrease. So now this will help me, and now I can, next thing I could also do is I could possibly pick a specific time frame, and then narrow it down, and then also go in there. Now I have a more reasonable number, in this case 29 complaints, right, where I can go down and start looking at each of them to see what exactly is happening. So in a matter of minutes, you could see that how Watson's NLP ability has allowed us to go from a data lake of 270,000 complaints data, and narrowing it down to specific information where you want to do some actionable insights. Now you can go in there and see what are they talking about. Is it something, am I seeing a trend or some pattern that I should arrest quickly before this gets blown up? And these days everything is out there on social media and news, and it's always difficult to try to fix things after they blow up, right? So this will help you really quickly identify the issues and then be able to take some focused actions on that. So I hope this gives you a good sense of what Watson can do in terms of insight, providing you insights. And while I talked about unstructured information, we also have tooling called as Watson Studio that can help you build machine learning and deep learning algorithms with just a matter of clicks, or even you don't even know what it is, but if you give it the data and say, here is my data, you tell me if you find any patterns in there, and then it will give you, oh, I see a lot of attrition, in HR is something that, one of a large organization in India is actually using this for, identifying whether, a particular employee will last and how long will he last, right? So that kind of information, based upon old data that they have, you can easily gather it, and you don't need to, as I said earlier, you don't need to build some Python application or R, kind of an application, and then you worry about how to build it. You can actually just dump the data at Watson, say, here are the parameters that I want to look at, here are the features that I want you to process, and then it will automatically come back and give you information as to, here is the best algorithm, do you want me to run this, and then I'll give you an output of this, and then you just click on it and it gives you it builds the algorithm for you, and it even chooses among multiple algorithms and says, here is the best algorithm for you. For example, a decision tree can be one algorithm, CNN will be another, convoluted neural networks can be another algorithm, and it can automatically go in there and compare these two and tell you what is the best one for you to use for your data set. And the other nice thing is that, which is something very, I actually forgot to add a slide for that, but very important for a lot of enterprises is transparency, right? Because, and that's called in different terms. Some people call it interpretability or explainability, right? So these are some of the words that we use, and we at IBM, we call it as transparency. What that basically means is that one of the critical aspects of a lot of enterprises not using AI that I've heard about is, other than the skills aspect, is that we don't know what happens in these deep learning algorithms. It's a black box, right? I don't know if I'm processing somebody's credit for loan, and if I run it through a wonderful algorithm, it might say, yes, Kiran is worthy, Kiran is not worthy. But then end of the day, what if Kiran says, hey, you didn't give me credit card, or you didn't give me a loan, I want to know why, right? And he might ask you that. If it's in deep learning algorithm, which is in a black box, and you don't really know how it did that, it is difficult for enterprises to that is actually the example that I gave is actually a real example that happened, where somebody sued an organization because they didn't give him a loan or home loan, but they weren't able to explain as to why they didn't give a home loan, right? So we have introduced something called as trust and transparency, where when you process your deep learning algorithm, Watson will actually look at it and actually extract out what are the things that it looked at, what are the factors that caused somebody to be, in this case, let's say, to extend this example, the loan was not approved or approved, right? So it could point out to you, your last payments issue, or it could be that, oh, you already have another home loan, you're overextended, and so on and so forth, right? So these kind of things can be easily provided in a nice interface, so that you don't have to worry about, okay, how do I interpret this deep learning algorithm. Instead, you just have to run it within the Watson environment, and Watson will provide that interpretability for you. All right, so two of those things that I think from a customer insights, it's really useful as to how you use cognitive solution or AI from an enterprise perspective. So now that's pretty much what I had for today, and I wanted to keep it. Last time I think we didn't have a lot of time for questions, so let me take the next poll question, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thank you, Kiran. So participants, we have our final and third poll. The poll question for you is, how would you like your enterprise to partner with IBM? There are 4 choices for you. Please select any one of the 4. You have 60 seconds to answer. So please pick any one of the 4 choices. Would you like to partner IBM to build cognitive solutions for our clients, develop cognitive solutions ourselves using IBM Watson, take IBM's assistance in developing cognitive solutions, or have IBM build cognitive solutions as per your requirements? Thank you, participants, for sending your responses. We have the results in front of us, with 20% of participants saying that they want to partner IBM to build cognitive solutions for our clients, 29% choosing develop cognitive solutions ourselves using IBM Watson, 38% going in for take IBM's assistance in developing cognitive solutions, and 13% choosing have IBM build cognitive solutions as per our requirements. Over to you, Kiran.
All right, thank you, Yash. So yeah, so again, something that I kind of expected based upon the India market, the way is like we want to do it ourselves. And interestingly, you have said we want to work with IBM, which is good. And the most important, even though it's only 20%, that is something personally, and also IBM's focus is this has been to have as many partners who can have a lot of solutions out there that can be taken out for our clients, because we always believe that IBM can't do everything ourselves, right? So even our IBM cloud that we have, the platform that we have, we allow partners to actually build solutions and publish the solutions out there. So interesting, definitely. Thank you so much. Next thing I wanted to talk about, okay, so just something funny here is that it's always it's a situation where robots are hiring humans, right? And then we're worried about them losing their jobs. So just something funny that I thought I'd put it out there. The last part that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I get asked a lot, and I forgot to put it in the last session, is how do I get started? I want to be able to, while before I start discussing with IBM, I want to try this out myself and get myself enabled. Where do I go? What do I do? Right? So IBM has, created a website called watsonacademy.info, and this is a free website. You can just register and start following up a lot of videos and courses, and there some of these courses actually give you what we call it as badges. It's not really a certificate, but still a badge that you can put out there saying that I'm certified to a certain extent and I do understand some basic concepts. So it's a good thing for somebody to have, and I myself am big with these badges, and I've done a number of these. So a lot of interesting, I've put some of these. There are a lot more out there. Some of these that I thought would be interesting was somebody who's starting off with AI. There's something called as artificial intelligence concepts, and most of these, by the way, are matter of 1 hour to 2-3 hours, and then you should be done with it, right? So it's not really long. It's quick, and that's the one of the things that I really like about it. It's very focused and compartmentalized in that sense. And there are different things. One of the most popular ones are chatbot related. So I put in a couple that talks about chatbot, and I also have something about NLP, which is kind of the topic that we discussed today. And then the last one is Watson machine learning. And as I said, there are many more. But Watson machine learning talks about things like how you can. Watson machine learning is actually a service in IBM Cloud, part of the Watson platform, which is where I was talking to you about earlier, right? Which does some of the things like you just dump the data at it and it just tells you what is the best, algorithm to use, right? If you're somebody who just wants to try it out, just to play around, and even production, this is pretty useful, right? And then it will give you a sense of what kind of algorithm you could build on, and then on top of that, you could even extract that code. For example, it will generate Python code for you. You could download that code and start customizing it. So instead of building your applications from scratch every time, one of the beauty of this thing is that the deep learning, aspect of it is that you can build. You don't have to write from scratch. You can have Watson build that code for you based upon what algorithm you choose, and then it'll take it from there, right? So yeah, so I'll kind of open it up for questions right now. So let's see if I have. So Yash, would you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kiran, for that wonderful presentation. Yeah, we'll open up the webinar for questions. And in fact, we've already got a lot of questions for you, Kiran. The
Okay.
first question is, Kiran, without huge data which can be used for deep learning, AI is no success. This brings big giants like Google, Facebook, Amazon well equipped to initiate AI projects easily. What are your views for small organizations, startups for AI implementation?
Yeah, very interesting question, right? So it depends upon what you're doing, definitely. But Watson we are focused on enterprises. So it depends upon whether you're doing an end user. We are not a B2C organization, right? So we are focused on enterprises. And so when I say enterprises, they want to be able to create certain insights, extract out insights based upon whatever data that they have, and enterprises typically have less data, right? So Watson's its ability is to be able to extract out, and a number of people have done this kind of comparisons, and they are published out there. And maybe that's something I should have put in as a link here, but they have seen that Watson's ability to extract out, patterns out of less amount of data is the best in the market. In terms of your question about if you are a startup, what is the approach that we take? We can have a personal one-on-one level discussion, but I don't think at this level I can give you an answer, because I need to understand what exactly you're trying to build.
Sure, Kiran. As a follow-up to this question, a gentleman wants to know, is Watson free? Because he comes from a startup, so he wants to know whether Watson is free for him or has he got to pay for it?
Okay. Yeah. So the quick answer to that is, end of the day, we need to make money, right? But yes, Watson, we have what is called as a freemium model. So there is up to a certain limit of, in terms of, for example, if you're using our chat ability, right? We have a service called Watson Assistant, and you can use 10,000 API calls per month, right? For example, just one example. And if you're using Watson Studio, Watson Machine Learning, it has its own different levels of where up to a certain limit or data or whatever, it is free. So if you want to just try it out, absolutely, it's free for you. You just need to create an IBM Cloud ID, and then you can start using these services, right? We have a catalog of all of these services, and if you go into catalog and then AI, you will have all of the services that I'm talking about. Having said that, you said you are a startup, and if you are trying to build, a solution, we do have a separate program, and you can reach out to me, and we can talk about it. And I've listed out my contact details here. You have my email ID. I am also pretty active in LinkedIn and Twitter, and I also have my YouTube channel. But anyway, you can reach out to me, and there are other ways for a startup or a somebody who's wanting to build a solution using Watson, wherein we do provide credits for you to be able to use it. So you don't have to only be restricted with the free account, but we do have a free account.
Right. Sure. So our next question is, gentleman wants to know how Watson can help over DL with given less data.
Yeah, so deep learning, you're absolutely right, right? So deep learning requires a lot of data, but typically what we have seen is that depending upon what you're trying to do, even with deep learning, you can still be able to produce a certain amount of what I say accuracies, right? Now let me break it up into two aspects. Watson has its own pre-built algorithms, and we have exposed them as services that do certain amounts of tasks, right? Now, whether if it is NLP, if it is speech to text, obviously, end of the day, it's deep learning, right? So, and then the other aspect is where you want to build a solution using some algorithms on your own. So now these are two different questions. So let me first try and answer the first question. I guess if you're worried, if you're asking, oh, why you say without much data, but then deep learning requires a lot of data, that is the question. What I'm trying to say is that we do pre-train Watson on some of the aspects. For example, speech, right? It comes pre-trained certain for languages to a certain extent. You can train beyond on top of that by customizing it with your own language, your own accents, right? That's we are actually the only speech capability that you can customize. And then the other aspect is where you are saying, I want to build my own algorithm. This is how I'm going to write it. Now I need a lot of data. Can I avoid having a lot of data? Well, that's a more iffy question, right? Again, it depends upon what you're trying to do and what it is. If you are using some of the Watson APIs, which have been pre-trained, have certain amount of capability already in it, even though they are deep learning, they already have used certain data to build those models, and now you add and customize a delta amount of data. So now you don't need a whole lot of data to be able to use this Watson services. I hope I'm making sense, but that's where the difference lies. So if it's your own algorithm, yes, you would need a lot of data. When it is deep learning, nothing much that we can do there. But if you're using Watson capabilities, then services that have been built already, yeah, you don't need a whole lot of data on top of that. But the beauty is it allows you to customize it and specific to your domain or your enterprises related language, for example.
Thank you, Kiran. Our next question has an HR angle to it. The gentleman wants to know, can Watson be used for resume screening and selection as well?
Actually, I know at least two companies that have done that or are doing that already. So so the quick answer is yes, it can be done. It's NLP based, and I don't remember if it is publicly available. And if you reach out to me, I can look it up and actually share you that solution that's put out there. I think it was done sometime last year. Yes, but the quick answer is yes.
Sure. Sure, Kiran. The next question is, how can we prepare data set for deep learning based on features?
Yeah, so how is something, there are different approaches that you can take, right? And again, this is a very generic answer in a large audience. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you're trying to do, what kind of problem that you're trying to solve, right? So the generic approach would be, you try to reduce the number of dimensions, right? The number of features to basically remove what doesn't make sense. Again, I don't know any of the data. Do you have data that is skewed, as in, let's say you are doing classifying between fraud and not fraud, you will typically have very less data for fraud. So there are a lot of, I don't know what you're trying to do. So for me to give a very generic answer would not be right. But if you can reach out to me, we can have a one-on-one discussion on that, definitely.
Okay, the next question, Kiran, for you is Watson integratable? Can it be integrated as an analytical tool in any website?
Absolutely. A very good question. Thank you very much. Um, the point that I should have made is that you can actually embed it within any of your business flows as well, right? As you said, in this case, you're saying, can I embed it within a website where I can call this? Absolutely. So all of our Watson services are exposed as REST APIs. They are services in the IBM cloud, and you just call. They have each service has a number of APIs, right? For example, if you're using the chat one, you can call it from a website, and you can call it to say, if somebody types in a message, you pass on that message, and then a response comes back, right? So all of that, yeah, you can embed it wherever, a mobile app, a website, any of your business flows, backend, doesn't matter.
Sure. Kiran, can it extract data from SAP? Is what a gentleman wants to know.
Yeah, interesting question. So when you say it, Watson is not a product, right? It's a platform, and as I mentioned, there are a number of services that do different things. So can it extract? Can it fetch data from SAP? The quick answer is yes. How and for what and all? Again, we need to see what it is, right? Do you want to extract it to do some NLP? Do you want to extract it to run it into a machine learning or a deep learning program to derive certain insights out of it? I don't know. So, but yeah, the quick answer is yes, definitely you can do that. A number of our clients are, IBM is big in SAP business, so definitely that is doable.
Sure, Kiran. The next question is, what is the cost benefit analysis of AI for a technology leader in an enterprise?
Again, a very good question, but a bit too generic for me, because it all depends upon. Okay, let me take one example, right? I have we were talking about 2 years back. We were talking to a health insurance company, and they said, "Oh, I receive 20 emails a day. Can you build me an AI solution so that I can avoid the cost?" Right? And that, for us, said the ROI doesn't make sense at all, right? But now we are talking with another. This is for email automation, which is something that Watson can do. Is where we are talking to a bank which said, I receive thousands of emails per day. Now there an ROI makes a lot of sense. So it all depends upon your use case and what is it that you're trying to solve. Depending on that, do you want to build it on your own? Do you want to use some of the existing APIs? Those things will narrow it down for us to do an ROI on that. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit too high level. I'm missing a lot of high level questions today.
Right, Kiran. So the next question is, can employee mood survey bot be built on Watson? Also, what kind of responses can it analyze from any private social media group or social media for a particular product or service?
So in terms of analyzing employee mood, yeah, so we have the ability where Watson can identify, of course, sentiment is something that it can do, of course. But on top of that, it can also identify the tone or the mood of the or the emotion of the a blog entry or an email or whatever that might be, right? It'll tell you whether the person is angry, sad, frustrated, happy, and joyful, and so on and so forth, right? So I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, but definitely it can do that. And in terms of the second question, in terms of what all data it can use, any data is fine, right? These days you can crawl any sites. Does Watson go and crawl these sites? we are not in the crawling business side of things. There are enough abilities out there and products and scripts that can do that. But once the data is there and you can use that data to then push it into Watson, and Watson can do the analysis for you, right? And so we are always, IBM is big in terms of security and safety and maintaining your personal information in a proper way. So we are a bit careful about how much of data, where we extract our data. I remember one client at one point asking me, I know Facebook has a lot of restrictions, but I want you to go behind the scenes, backdoor entry into Facebook and get me all my clients' details. I just have their email IDs. Go get me all their information. Right? We don't really do that. We are more into maintaining the personal, whatever rights that we have as an end user. So we stay out of that. So, but that's something that you want to do and you have the permissions to do that. Absolutely, you can fetch the information. Once you have that data, Watson can do fantastic work in terms of analyzing it and giving you some insights.
Sure, Kiran. The next question for you is, can I build a chatbot integrated with Salesforce and SAP for customer service and sales department?
I think we already have a solution like that. Yeah, if you can reach out to me, the quick answer is yes. And I think we already have a solution that working with Salesforce that comes inbuilt in Salesforce. So you should be either it's already there, or if you want to build something on top of that which is not there, that is also doable. Reach out to me.
Okay, right. So gentleman wants to know if he can build a chatbot using Watson.
Of course. Yeah. So that is one of the oldest capabilities. When we first commercialized Watson, that is what we did, and we still have it, and we are the number one in that market, right? There was a recent Forrester research report that came out where we were the only ones ranked in the leader quadrant, right? I don't know if you know these quadrant reports that come out every quarter. So we are the only ones in the leader, and we constantly get the number one, the best innovation in what we call as conversational AI, right? So we are in that space. You can, in a matter of minutes, actually, you can build a chatbot or even a voice bot using Watson.
Sure, Kiran. We have time for only one question. And we have our final question for you, Kiran. The gentleman wants to know, how would combining AI with RPA, robotic process automation, impact businesses? Because this is a new trend that we are seeing increasingly in enterprises, combining AI and RPA together. So what kind of impact can businesses expect from this combination?
Yeah, I don't know the business benefit numbers if that's what you're asking, but definitely this is something that is we are seeing that and quite a bit, and this is almost like over a year now, where this what we call as cognitive process automation, right? It's not just robotic, it's also an intelligent automation, wherein, and we have IBM's partner Blue Prism is one of them that have, and we have built a number of solutions out of that. So one of the use cases that I have seen implemented for RPA is where you have an intelligent system look at, analyze tickets or analyze emails, and then drive some process behind the scenes. For example, if a ticket says, I'm not able to log into my system, then it automatically calls some process that goes through the steps of resetting a password, for example, right? So yeah, it's a very important use case that our services wing actually extensively is involved in. Our IBM's is Global Business Services, GBS, is heavily involved in that, definitely.
Thank you, Kiran. That's all we have time for. And thank you very much for that wonderful presentation and equally wonderful responses to all the questions, Kiran. With this, we would like to bring this webinar to a close. Thank you so much, Kiran, and thank you participants for taking time off for this discussion.
Yeah, thank you all for joining it. I appreciate all the fantastic questions, and thank you, Yash, for giving me this opportunity. Have a good evening, everyone.